Reading was never something I was interested in while attending school, nor was it something I thought I would ever do again once I graduated. But I decided to read again because, undoubtedly, the finest way towards personal growth is to read books, and I would love to be a better version of myself. In an era when, excluding a selective few, everyone else is suffering from the ill effects of stress-related complications, the self-improvement books could act as life-saving drugs. These books would help us see things in a different perspective. The dark shades of life would suddenly appear gray, and when probed further, begin to reveal colors hidden in them. These books kind of guided me to find myself and allow me to hone my values. And these books are the ones that I would turn to when I feel lost and not sure what to do with my life. So I just want to share these books with you guys and read some quotes from these books in hopes that it will shed a light upon your path as well. The book I want to talk about in this video is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F by Mark Manson. This book has been getting a lot of buzz. Some people who dislike this book were put off by the tone of it. The author doesn't sugarcoat anything and delivers his message in a straightforward and blunt manner. You might feel a little bit uncomfortable reading this book because it's written like a cool uncle yelling at you. Why do you care so much about everything? Focus on meaningful things. Yes, I feel like I was getting yelled at all the time. It was definitely a different reading experience. However, there was humor and a lot of captivating stories, which make the reading experience more enjoyable. And at the same time, you will get a lot of helpful advice, and it may shift your mindset and perspective a little bit. I especially love the way the author carries himself so casually without losing depth to his points. Despite the kind of flashy, vulgar, eye-catching title, this book is about how to examine the values that you center your life around and what it would require to actually make any kind of shift in them. Finding something important and meaningful in your life is the most productive use of your time and energy. This is true because every life has problems associated with it, and finding meaning in your life will help you sustain the effort needed to overcome the particular problems you face. Thus, we can say that the key to living a good life is not caring about more things, but rather caring only about the things that align with your personal values. Okay, now I would like to read some concepts from the book. I hope you enjoy. The key to a good life is not giving a fuck about more. It's giving a fuck about less. Giving a fuck about only what is true and immediate and important. The desire for a more positive experience is itself a negative experience. And paradoxically, the acceptance of one's negative experience is itself a positive experience. Pursuing something only reinforces that you lack it in the first place. Accepting your experience of life as being great and wonderful is the single greatest thing you can do for your happiness. You will never be happy if you continue to search for what happiness consists of. You will never live if you are looking for the meaning of life. Everything worthwhile in life is won through surmounting the associated negative experience. If you are able to not give a fuck about the pain your goals require, then you become unstoppable. The moments when we don't give a fuck and take action are often the moments that most define the course of our lives. Practical enlightenment is the act of becoming comfortable with the idea that some suffering is always inevitable. Don't hope for a life without problems. Hope for a life with good problems. Problems never stop. They merely get exchanged or upgraded. Happiness is found in solving problems, not avoiding them. True happiness occurs only when you find the problems you enjoy having and enjoy solving. Happiness is wanting the problems you have and wanting to solve them. Don't ask yourself what you want out of life. It's easy to want success and fame and happiness and great sex. Everybody wants those things. A much more interesting question to ask yourself is, what kind of pain do I want? What you are willing to struggle for is a greater determinant of what our lives turn out. You can't merely in love with the result. Everybody loves the result. You have to love the process. The climb to the top is a never-ending upward spiral with new problems always surfacing and new processes that you must fall in love with. You are never allowed to stop climbing because the entire point is to love the climb. If you ever stop loving the climb, the results will never come. Most of us are pretty average at most things we do. Even if you are exceptional at one thing, chances are you are average or below average at most other things. Our lives today are filled with information from the extremes of the bell curve of human experience. The best of the best, worst of the worst, and most upsetting of the upsetting. We only see the most exceptional news stories because that's what drives revenue. This is a real problem when it comes to comparison, because you can only be exceptional in one thing, and you are going to be below average in nearly everything else. That makes comparison a very dangerous game to play. People who are exceptional become that way by thinking they are average and focusing on improvement. You don't become exceptional by believing you are exceptional. The more uncomfortable the answer, the more likely it is to be true. Problems are inevitable, but what they mean is flexible. We get to control what our problems means to us based on how we choose to think about them and how we choose to measure them. The way we measure success influences how we view the problems we face. Pleasure is a false god. Research shows that people who focus on their energy on superficial pleasures end up more anxious, more emotionally unstable, and more depressed. Pleasure is the most superficial form of life satisfaction, and therefore the easiest to obtain and the easiest to lose. People who base their self-worth on being right about everything prevent themselves from learning from their mistakes. People who are terrified of what others think about them are actually terrified of all the negative things they think about themselves being reflected back at them. We don't always control what happens to us, but we always control how we interpret what happens to us, as well as how we respond. Accepting responsibility for our problems is the first step to solving them. A lot of people hesitate to take responsibility for their problems because they believe that to be responsible for your problems is also to be at fault for your problems. This is not true. We are responsible for experiences that aren't our fault all the time. This is part of life. People will often fight over who gets to be responsible for success and happiness. But taking responsibility for our problems is far more important because that's where real learning comes from. Growth is an endlessly iterative process. When we learn something new, we don't go from wrong to right. Rather, we go from wrong to slightly less wrong. We shouldn't seek to find the ultimate right answer for ourselves, but rather we should seek to chip away at the ways that we are wrong today so that we can be a little less wrong tomorrow. Certainty is the enemy of growth. All beliefs are wrong. Some are just less wrong than others. The more you try to become certain about a particular issue, the more uncertain and insecure you will feel. The more you embrace being uncertain and not knowing, the more comfortable you will feel in knowing what you don't know. The man who believes he knows everything learns nothing. The more something threatens your identity, the more you will avoid it. The more something threatens how you view yourself, the more you will avoid getting around to doing it. If you don't have an identity to protect, then change becomes much easier. For any change to happen in your life, you must accept that you were wrong about something you were doing before. If it feels like it's you versus the world, chances are it's really just you versus yourself. The magnitude of your success is tied to how many times you failed at that thing. Goals are limited in the amount of happiness they can provide in our lives because they are finite. Once you achieve your goal, it can no longer provide happiness because the finish line has been crossed. Paradoxically, then, by choosing processes as your focus, you can increase your overall lifelong happiness by focusing on process and not the goal. Processes never end, which means happiness can continue indefinitely. Action isn't just the effect of motivation, it's also the cause of it. Do something, and inspiration will follow. Do something now, even if it's really small, and let good actions cascade as a result. To truly appreciate something, you must confine yourself to it. There is a certain level of joy and meaning that you reach in life only when you've spent decades investing in a single relationship, a single craft, a single career. And you cannot achieve those decades of investment without rejecting the alternatives. The mark of an unhealthy relationship is when two people try to solve each other's problems in order to feel good about themselves. Trust is the most important ingredient in any relationship, for the simple reason that without trust, the relationship doesn't actually mean anything. Rejection of alternatives liberates us. In a strange way, commitment to one thing offers more freedom than anything else, because it relieves you of all the second guessing about what else is out there. If there is no reason to do anything, if life is pointless, then there is also no reason to not do anything. What do you have to lose? You are going to die anyway, so your fears and embarrassments and failures don't mean anything. You might as well try. All of the meaning in our life is shaped by our innate desire to never truly die. Our physical bodies will die, but we cling to the idea that we can live on through religion, politics, sports, art, and technological innovation. The only way to be comfortable with death is to understand and see yourself as something bigger than yourself, to contribute to some much larger entity. It is the act of choosing your values and living by them that makes you great, not any outcome or accomplishment. Now, I would like to end this video with one of my favorite quotes. One day, in retrospect, the years of struggle will strike you as the most beautiful. Okay, thank you so much for joining me today, and I appreciate you, and I'm glad that you decided to watch or listen to this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next week.